Camp intel. We got whispers. We got nuggets. We got to start in Ann Arbor, Michigan. That quarterback battle. We've talked about LSU a lot, and we're about to again. Let's talk about Michigan, though. Cade McNamara, is it going to be him again? Is it going to be J.J. McCarthy? Sometimes stories change, but reality doesn't change. And I have felt for quite a while that's what's been happening with the Michigan quarterback battle. I'm not suggesting that it hasn't been a battle. What I am suggesting is we've seen some headlines. I've watched some folks in and around the Michigan beat flip-flop their opinion of who's going to end up being the starting quarterback. And I don't really think reality's changed all that much. We've had our opinion set around here for a while, and that is unless there's a pretty steady course correction by Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan coaching staff, we thought Cade McNamara was going to be the starter at Michigan. We still feel that way. Well, Sam Webb, with the Michigan Insider, a lot closer to the program than we'll ever be, kind of echoed that sentiment recently. Folks around the program have kind of echoed that sentiment. Jim Harbaugh's not going to tell you anything. He's doing it no different than I would if I were the head coach at Michigan. And as has been stated many times, but needs to be stated at least once more, this is not a situation where Michigan plays any kind of top 20 competition for the first month of the year, basically. So they've got time. They don't need to have anything decided. But when you look at Cade McNamara and you look at the steady presence that he provides, it's not that there are not multiple areas where J.J. McCarthy may have an edge on him. I just think they value the poise, the steady presence, how he doesn't lose you football games. My mind always goes back to the Michigan State game last year where we watched J.J. McCarthy turn the ball over. That's an unfair assessment. I'm not saying that's my scouting report of him. I'm saying the first time I saw him in person was that game, so that's what always stands out. But it's kind of a microcosm of why I think McCarthy, one of the reasons at least, why McCarthy still has the edge here, or why McNamara has the edge, it's just because they know they can trust him. When you've got a veteran presence who doesn't have weakness physically, you don't have to give much up when you have Cade McNamara on the field, and he's got the poise, and you've seen him under duress, it's hard to overtake that. And so that's why J.J. McCarthy hasn't overtaken him, so to speak. But it's no mystery. We'll see both of them play. So it was kind of good to see Sam Webb give that update because it validated a lot of what we've more or less felt around here for the entirety of fall camp around Michigan. Now, down at LSU, they've got a quarterback battle going on that went from 3-2 recently because, as we talked about on the previous show, we saw Miles Brennan exit the program. He's just done playing college football. So at the quarterback position, they had a scrimmage yesterday, and we're watching Jaden Daniels, and we're watching, of course, Garrett Nussmeier. This may be one where we end up being wrong. We haven't had a strong feeling on it, but if I had to bet some money early in fall camp, I would have placed a wager that Garrett Nussmeier was going to end up being their starter. There was no smart money. Brian Kelly didn't know. And it sounds like Jaden Daniels had himself another good scrimmage yesterday. It's not like we're rooting against him or anything like that, although I do hate losing hypothetical money. But it sounds like Jaden Daniels had himself another good scrimmage yesterday. So what we have always known about Jaden Daniels is he has the experience edge. We know he's got the mobility edge. So the edge that Garrett Nussmeier was going to need to have was going to be overwhelming edge with his arm and accuracy and the ability to thread the needle and the ability to move the chains through the air. But it sounds like, listening to Brian Kelly and talking to a couple of folks around the program, Jaden Daniels had a good day throwing the ball yesterday too in their scrimmage. So if he's checking that box, then it becomes pretty academic that he's going to end up being your starting quarterback. Now, I do want to reiterate something that someone around LSU told me 3 nights ago now, because I still think it rings very true. I think that even if Jaden Daniels, or Garrett Nussmeier for that matter, ended up being your week 1 starter against Florida State, that's not the end of the quarterback competition. There could still very well be that situation that we've seen play out many times where you go through all of spring and all of summer and all of fall, and you go so far down the rabbit hole of developing your opinion and developing your perception about that position, and then you watch, a quarter, a half of real football, and one guy just is a gamer. I don't even know what that means. I can't really even define it for you, but you and I both know we've seen guys at multiple positions, not just quarterback, when they're keeping score and it's Saturday, for some reason, they play well above the ski level that you've seen from them during the week. Well, what if Garrett Nussmeier just ends up being that? Or what if Jaden Daniels ends up being that? My point is, and the point that a couple of folks close to the program have made is, Don't get carried away. Don't just etch it in stone because a guy trots out there to take the first snaps against Florida State. So I'm not going to. At Notre Dame, we spoke about injuries the other night. You remember we were talking about Avery Davis, who is a multi-year, long-time guy, like a sixth-year guy for them. Veteran leader, was going to obviously be a starting receiver for them, and he's out for the year. And so they were dealing with that. Xavier Watts yesterday was being worked at receiver. And he's a guy who had moved to defensive back for him. And I think today they scrimmaged, and he went both ways today. Ultimately, what you're looking at here is Notre Dame trying to get guys back and replenish their wide receiver stable. When they do, I would say it's my opinion that Xavier Watts is probably a DB for you. I think most folks who cover the team would echo that. But right now, they're dealing with some depth and injury situations at wide receiver. But also, Jarrett Patterson is a name to pay attention to. It's the talk of a lot of Notre Dame communities and message boards right now. He should be their left guard. He's had injury concerns of his own. Now, the latest update from Marcus Freeman is he may be questionable for Ohio State. So do we get him back? Do we not? The best intel we've gotten is it'll still be kind of a long shot, but let's keep an eye on it. We've already talked about rapid healing at the wide receiver position for them. Let's just keep an eye on that offensive line. I did want to touch on a rumor that was floating around the other night about what would be a really big injury out of Alabama. I don't think we've said this fall, so it's a good time for me to say this. Being carted off means a lot different thing on a Saturday than it does during practice. This goes for the NFL too. When you get carted off on a Saturday or a Sunday during a game, it is 99% certainty something bad's happened to you and you are not coming back anytime soon. However, guys get carted off in practice all the time. Guys get carted off for cramps in practice all the time. And if you didn't know any better, and most of us don't because you don't get access to practice, which is a shame, but you don't, you just hear, for instance, Jordan Battle, starting safety for Alabama, got carted off the other day. Well, I have no reason to believe that's not true. We heard it from multiple people. You notice I didn't talk about it on the Tuesday night show, even though we had the information. The reason I didn't is because 2 or 3 other guys probably got carted off the practice field for Alabama this week too. And you didn't hear about it, doesn't mean it doesn't happen. There are all kinds of reasons guys get carted off. So we chose the 48-hour approach on this one. And a lot of times in camp, I utilize that. Get all kind of intel, all kind of tips and whispers and stuff. We apply the 48-hour principle, especially on injuries, because 48 hours later, it's clear. Well, guess what? It's clear now. Jordan Battle's okay. Charlie Potter over on BamaOnline.com reporting that yesterday, I think. Jordan Battle's okay. So I know that it sounded dire for a little while, and the rumors were making their rounds on Twitter. Nope, Jordan Battle is okay. And it's a good thing, too, because Jordan Battle is one of the best players on that team. I think their defense is going to be really good. I know that that's a spoiler. I hate to let you guys know Bama's going to be good this year. But if they're bad, I don't think it's going to be because the defense let them down again. Also, I owe it to producer Jesse. We had a bunch of our national guys in town this week, and they took Jesse out on the town the other night, the young, impressionable fawn of the staff. And they did who knows what. And then at the end of the night, they told him he looked like Cam Rising. Then they just left him. Cam Rising's the starting quarterback for Utah. Looks like he lives in a cave 6 days out of the week. And I got to be real, I'm not disagreeing with him. I'm just saying it was wrong for him to do it. So Jesse, I felt a little pity for today. So I'm going to give you a Penn State update. I'm going to toss him a little softball here. The offensive line at Penn State let them down last year. The offensive line at Penn State is the kind of position group that you have to dig through several layers when you talk to folks around the program. But if you'll get truth serum in them, they'll tell you, hey, we're going to be good on the offensive line. Don't tell anybody. Please don't tell anybody. But we're going to be good on the offensive line. Are you, though? To quote one of our employees, we'll call her Christy, are you, though? If they are, it kind of validates what the JP poll says. Let's keep in mind, we're going to talk about it a little bit later. JP poll says this quote-unquote unranked Penn State is actually the 10th best team in the country to start the season. Could the model know something about the Penn State offensive line? Has the model become alive and developed the ability to interpret rumors itself? Perhaps. I think they're going to be pretty good on the offensive line. They have some quiet confidence. James Franklin has taken his own special approach about the way he talks about his offensive line this spring, even unto the rest of the team. He has like offensive line protocol, and then he's got the way he talks about the rest of his team. I've heard conflicting things about the offensive line at Penn State, and I think I've narrowed down what's going on. I think the 10,000-foot crowd is the crowd telling me Penn State's offensive line is going to be average at best again this year, maybe even not good. And I think the ones who are day-to-day on the ground around the program are the ones who are picking up the hoofbeats a little bit more that could be pleasantly surprised by how this offensive line looks. Now, let me give the caveat for the 10,000th time this spring, summer, fall. If they stay healthy, I wish we could just put a banner. We got the YouTube plaque over here. How about a banner over here, Colin, that just says, if they stay healthy? We just fly it through every single practice and whispers and intel segment from now until eternity. So, hey, let's just say the cautious optimism verifies, and let's say Penn State does have a good offensive line. Well, at least we could put that ridiculous stat from last year to rest where they didn't have a single 100-yard rusher in a game. That'd be nice. And then the follow-up could be when we arrive on October 29th and Ohio State comes in there, even though it's a noon kickoff, which everyone but me has a problem with, maybe that's one of the games. If you're trying to find a path where Ohio State gets tripped up, maybe that's the game where they get tripped up. So that's an update on camp, whispers, and intel all around the country. It gets even more important. The air gets even thinner and thinner from this point. We're going to have second scrimmages for some teams coming up this weekend. I imagine our Sunday night segment will be even fatter than that one.